Have you ever stopped to wonder how some of your favorite apps just work? Flawlessly on both your friend's iPhone and your Android? Well, today we're pulling back the curtain and decoding hybrid app development. It's the really smart way businesses are building for every user on any device. So let's dive in and see how this whole thing works.
So, here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle the big problem that every developer faces. Then, we'll introduce the hybrid solution that solves it. We'll put hybrid head-to-head with the traditional native approach, break down the different types of hybrid apps out there, and finally, help you figure out if it's the right move for your own project.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning. We have to understand the fundamental challenge that gets this whole conversation started, that massive divide between iOS and Android.
I mean, if you're building an app for the public, the answer is pretty much always a big fat yes, right? You just can't afford to tell half of your potential customers, sorry, we don't support your phone. But that simple need creates a huge headache, both for the business and for the tech team.
And this slide really nails the classic dilemma. Over on the left, you've got the old school painful way, building two completely separate apps. That means two different code bases, probably two different teams, which, you guessed it, jacks up your costs and makes your launch date feel like it's a million years away. But on the right? That's the dream, isn't it? Just one app, for everybody. An app you can actually get to market fast and without completely blowing your budget.
So, the big question is, how do we get to that dream scenario? Well, that brings us right to the star of our show, the hybrid solution. The whole idea is one code base to handle both platforms.
So what is it, really? At its heart, hybrid development is exactly what it sounds like. It's a mix. It combines that native code that talks directly to your phone's hardware with the web technologies we all know, like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But the real magic, the key takeaway, is that single code base. You write the code once and it works pretty much everywhere.
And from a business perspective, the benefits are just huge. I mean, think about it. You get your app out to market way faster. Your users get the same great, consistent experience, whether they're on an iPhone or an Android. And when it's time to push an update, it's one simple process, not a double headache. And all of this, of course, adds up to one very important thing. It costs a lot less.
And let's put a real number on that. The source material points to a potential cost saving of up to 40%. 40! Just by reusing code and not having to hire two separate specialized teams. The financial upside becomes incredibly clear. For any business, but especially a startup, that is an absolute game changer.
Okay, this brings us to the most important part of the whole discussion. Let's put these two approaches head to head. When do you go hybrid, and when is native still the undisputed champion?
This table breaks it down perfectly. You can see right away that for code base, cost, and time to market, hybrid is the clear winner. It's just flat out more efficient. But, and this is a big but, when you look at performance and device access, the story shifts. Native apps are built for one specific operating system, so they're always going to give you the absolute best, fastest, most optimized performance. They get full direct access to the phone's camera, its GPS, everything. So here's the deal. Hybrid gives you near-native performance, which is totally fine for most apps. But if you're building a super high-end game or some crazy AR experience, native is still king.
Now, it's really important to know that hybrid isn't just one thing. It's actually a whole category of approaches. So let's quickly look at the different types so you can see all the options on the table.
First up, we've got the simplest and most straightforward kind, web view apps. The easiest way to think about these is that they're basically a website, just packaged up neatly inside a native app's shell.
So, because they're built using standard web stuff, they are ridiculously fast to get up and running. This makes them a fantastic choice for apps that are mostly about showing content, or for when you want to launch a minimum viable product, an MVP, and you need to do it like yesterday.
Next, we level up. This is what most people think of when they talk about modern hybrid development. Apps built with powerful frameworks like React Native or Flutter.
These frameworks are incredible. They essentially act as a bridge, translating your code into a user experience that has rich interfaces and super smooth animations. Honestly, the final result often feels so good you can't even tell it isn't a true native app. This makes it a perfect choice for a business that's ready to scale.
And finally, we have a really unique category that kind of blurs the lines between a website and an app. They're called progressive web apps, or PWAs for short.
Now these are a total game changer. A PWA runs in your web browser, but it can be installed right onto your phone's home screen. It can work when you're offline. It can even send you push notifications. And here's the killer feature. It does all of this without you ever having to go through an app store. That is a huge deal because it removes a massive barrier for getting users to actually try your app. All right, so we've covered a ton of ground. With all this info, how do you actually make the call? Let's jump into our final section and figure out how you can decide what's right for your project.
First off, it helps to see that the process itself is pretty straightforward and manageable. You start with strategy, figuring out your goals and features, just like any other project. Then you move into that unified development phase where you write that single, beautiful code base. And finally, you have one streamlined process for testing and launching to both app stores. It's a clean, logical workflow.
And you know what? This quote from our source material just hits the nail on the head. It says it all. If you're building the first version of your app, if it's mostly about delivering content, or if your biggest concerns are a tight budget and a fast deadline, well, the hybrid approach is very, very likely your best bet. It was practically made for these situations. Which brings us right down to this final crucial question. This is the core trade-off you really need to think about. What matters most to you? What's your #1 business priority? Is it squeezing out every last drop of pixel-perfect, native performance for a really demanding application? Or is it getting your idea into the hands of as many people as possible on both iOS and Android as fast and as cheaply as you can? Your answer to that question is your compass. It's what will guide you to the right development path for your vision.